and just talk a little bit about the future, what I see. This shouldn't take all that long, and then I'd like to open up for any questions and answers that you might have. This echo. Am I too close? But first thing I wanted to say to all of you and to everyone out there in the AMSA shops who's listening in, etc., is that I really want to say thank you for what you've been doing. You know, our nation has been at war in this period of time for almost 17 years now, and it's taken a tremendous toll on our readiness of our force, our civilians, our active component, our reserve component, etc. It has challenged us in ways that we haven't even begun to understand, quite frankly. And the threats haven't gone away, and we've gone through some unprecedented times, starting with the Budget Reduction Act in 2011 to where we are now. We're starting to go back up the swing to build our national defense up where it should be. And you're all part of that big piece of that. Most of you in this room and out there have probably put 10, 15, 20 years of service into our military at this particular time. And you've known nothing except this current operations of counterterrorism support and a rigorous, predictable deployment cycle that we've been under since really about 2004 as we mobilized units and restructured the Army to move forward. It was unprecedented the fact that we were starting to supposedly get the peace dividend after we got out of Iraq. So we closed down operations in 2011. And the nation was expecting the peace dividend just like we have in our history throughout World War I, World War II, where we've demobilized forces and we've got back to spending in our domestic programs. It was unprecedented that we started to do a drawdown, the fact we were still engaged in a major worldwide fight. And now the world is probably more unsafe than it ever has been in our time of knowledge. And I don't have to tell you by listening to the news and other things that we are concerned about operations against Iran, threats in Korea, Europe against Russia, while we're still carrying the counterterrorism fight around the world that just continues to morph and change as time goes on. We've had an all-volunteer force. First time that's ever happened. It's been stretched during this period of time. So I just say again, thank you for what you're doing, and thank you for being committed and staying with the fight. It's important, and we've got to have dedicated people across the spectrum in our civilian workforce and our military workforce to continue to prepare for tomorrow's fight. And there's a lot of things going on in the Pentagon now talking about the year 2025, 2035. You know, most of you probably won't be around in the service when those period of time come, but things are changing at a pace that is hard to fathom where it's going with the technology that's coming down the pipe and what we're developing and the structural changes that are going on. And the reason why I'm telling you this is because I'm expecting change to come to the Army Reserve too. And over the next few weeks, I'm going to meet with the USARC staff. I'm going to meet with General Lucky later in the month, and he's going to unveil some of the visions that he has for the readiness divisions as we continue to move forward. I can't tell you a whole lot today because I just don't know a whole lot. But what I can tell you is that there are two things out there that we need to be focused on, and one of those is the readiness of the force, which you heard, and readiness involves more than just taking a PT test and individual readiness aspects of that. It involves the training of the force and how well we can do our jobs. And I'm sure you've heard this term of a multi-domain fight. If you don't know what that is, the 5 domains of air, land, sea, space, and cyber. An integration of those domains in a multi-contested trans-regional fight across the world, where we used to look at combatant commands and how we nicely divided the world up into these nice little sectors, and everybody just got in their little stovepipes and fight it out. Well, today it's more of a globally integrated operations. And so you're seeing changes go on in the Pentagon. Just the morning news report on, I think it was Monday morning, talked about General Dunford asking for the Secretary of Defense different authorities than what we've had to at the joint staff level to be able to distribute forces around the world to the combatant commanders. That's just one of the things that is going on. It has huge strategic impacts for the Army Reserve on how we will allocate forces around the world and the readiness of those forces to do there. But that being said, I want to just take a couple minutes and tell you a little bit about me more than anything else. So my coming to the 81st happened rather quickly. I talked to the car a couple of months ago and he asked me if I wanted to take on a command. He didn't tell me where it was, and I said, absolutely, sir. I told the staff yesterday that I told my parents before I came here, I said, I must be going to heaven because I've already spent 18 months in hell at the Pentagon. So I am super excited about being here. So I went and talked to OCAR, and I said, hey, y'all going to make a change? Is there anything in the... He said, oh, yes, sir. Let me get back with you. That was Tuesday morning. Then I got an email on Thursday morning, got my assignment orders. So things do run at snail's pace, but they also happen pretty fast when they do happen. And then I left the office, the J4 office, on Thursday afternoon at around 6 o'clock, and there was no one there except me to close the office door as we went out. So I said goodbye to no one except on an email Friday morning as I was getting on a plane to fly back to Texas, and took command on Saturday morning. So that's why I sent the email out, said I wasn't coming until now this week, because there was a huge change. Of course, we had the Christmas holidays and all those things, and I really hope you had time to be with your families and just enjoy the holidays. It's a special time of year that we all should take advantage of as we get ready to do the hard business throughout the rest of the year. A little bit about me. So I graduated, first of all, I was born in Alabama, the great state of Alabama. They won the national championship. I don't know who was out there last night, but so I am an SEC fan, but I moved shortly after that. My dad was a lieutenant helicopter pilot in the very beginnings of the Korean War. We went to College Station, Texas, where we ended up there, where our family was originally from. We came over on the boats in 18-something. I don't know, the family went through North Platte, Nebraska, and settled in Curtin, Texas, in a German community there. But my parents went back there. I spent most of my childhood days in Bryan College Station, Texas. Went to Texas A&M, got my commission, went to active duty. I was with the 82nd Airborne Division for 4 years, and my wife and I decided we'd get out, and I went to work for a great company called Hallmark Cards. I did not even know what a greeting card was when I went to work there, but I quickly learned out how to make one and all the details about it. Today I sit around and watch the Hallmark Hall of Fame and other things, and I say, wow, I was part of a great organization, just like I'm still part of a great organization with the Army. I deployed to Iraq 3 times, Kuwait. 2011, when I got back from my second deployment, basically things were not well at the company with the changes in Congress about the Affordable Care Act and some of these other things. Basically, Hallmark was looking at closing one of their manufacturing plants, and I decided to apply for an early retirement and was accepted. Later was asked to stay on for a while, and 48 hours after I actually left the company, the CEO came in and told all the employees that they were closing the manufacturing facility. So I'll say I'm a blessed person. I couldn't have planned that in any way. At the same time, I got promoted to general officer, and then I was just doing part-time in the Army Reserve, and I work in our family business today. I kind of work in our human resources area and business development at a local insurance company. We have about $10 million worth of sales annually in that company. So that's what I do now. Enjoy that very much, enjoy being here. Like I said, I'm excited about being here. One of the things that Hallmark taught me about is change. You know, you got to anticipate the marketplace and way change is occurring if you're going to get out in front of it. And so that message is what I want to send you today, that I do expect there to be changes in the Readiness Division, and I do look for this organization to help lead those changes. You know, my kids always joke with me about some of the things I say, but one of my sayings that I guess I picked it up from Ronald Reagan, I don't know where I got it, but I don't like drinking water downstream from the herd. So, and really what I mean by that is that I don't want to be taking somebody else's, you know, whatever. I want to be initiating. I want to be upstream ahead. I want to be always taking the lead on things if we can. And innovation and change is where it's going to be. That's where the legacy of the 81st is. If you look back at its history, back to World War I and what it did and what it had to do in the Second World War, and what we've done in the Army Reserve over time, especially the last 17 years, the 81st has been a big part of that. It will continue to be a big part of that, but if you don't change, you die on the vines. So it's really about protecting everyone's job and everyone's future sitting right here in this room by accepting change. And so you got to realize when you have discussions and you have talks, it's not about someone stealing your rice bowl and taking your, and you know, what you're doing today, it's about what's good for the Army Reserve, because I've always learned that we all work for somebody, and if we're all working toward the betterment of where we need to go, everybody wins in the long run. And you got to really believe that. And so you'll see one of my things that I talk about is, everybody knows the military decision-making process. Everybody know what that is? That 7 long, laborious thing? Well, it's too complicated for me. I'm a simple guy. I'm a 20th century soldier in a 21st century army, okay? I got a four-step decision-making process. It's real simple. Define the problem. If you don't take the time to define the problem up front, you can't solve it. You should spend 99% of your time defining what your problem is. And then you should go through a process called debating. And that's debating means that you got to put your ego beside and you got to think about the organization and what you're trying to accomplish. And you got to come to what they call a high level of understanding and a high level of agreement. The only way you can get that is because you got to debate and you got to be able to talk about things without hurting each other's feelings. Because some things are going to maybe dig into your little rice bowl a little bit, and you got to be willing to look at it from an overall bigger perspective about what you need to accomplish. So you frame the problem, you debate it, and then you decide. And once that decision is made, that's when the organization has to have the understanding of what you're trying to do. And it may not be what you want, but it may be collectively the best thought process.
All great, here we go.
All, was that? What?
Somewhere on the phone.
Is not on mute.
Oh, someone's phone went on mute. That's a great comment. But anyway, so then anyway, after we decide, then we got to move out. And so it's really a 4-step process there. So it kind of keeps it simple. It's something we can execute here. So AGRs. I know everyone always wants to hear about the organization piece. AGRs, I expect you to set the standard. Bottom line, the Army's got standards, and we'll abide by the standards. It's that simple. If you got to have a PT test, height and weight, you better abide by it. That's just that simple. You got to stay green. If you haven't been reading, you ought to start reading about Korea. There's many books out there. The American Army was thrown into a fight in 1950. We almost got beat. It was only because of the logistics of the Chinese that really saved us. At the end of the day, they just ran to the end of their supply lines, and they just ran out of food, material, and people, quite frankly, because they sacrificed their people at unbelievable numbers. The Americans that were thrown into the fight were ill-prepared, ill-trained, and not ready to fight. I will tell you that there has been things and lots of planning going on about North Korea. And everyone needs to embrace the fact that something could happen on the pin. I hope it doesn't. but I think the Chief of Staff has been very clear about the readiness of the force to get ready for that. So AGRs, you need to embrace that. Because most of you sitting in this room, if we end up having to mobilize a lot of people, you're going to go with the equipment you got, and you're going with the body you retain. So you better make sure you got your body, that's the one thing you do control, ready to go. Because it's a brutal environment over there that, I don't know if any of y'all been to Korea or walked the Incheon Flats or any of those places, but it's a brutal environment, summer and winter. And I'm not a fan of winter. I thought I was in the South with all this cold weather, but I guess it's but you need to be ready. And so I'll be talking more to the chief about that, but how we're going to look at things, but be ready, AGRs. And the last thing I want to tell you, and this is really the whole crux of everyone in the room, including myself, does anybody know the Ranger Code of Honor? If you don't, look it up. Because line 5 of that code is somewhat like our warrior ethos in the Army. I'm not quoting it directly, but it's basically this, that I will always burden my share of the task 100% and beyond. So everyone needs to burden their share of the task. Your share of the task is not only within your individual sections and what you do and what you prepare for, but it's about owning the responsibility of yourself. I tell the TPUs the same thing that I tell the full-time staff is they got to own that piece of it, and you got to figure that out. I was the first Army Reserve officer to be selected to go to the Chief of Staff's new ASEP course. That stands for, I can't remember, the Advanced Senior Executive Program Army. They got that now. You got ASEP B and ASEP A. The general officer education has changed. So I went to that last March. It was a 5-week course, and in that course I had to write a paper, send to the Chief of Staff, the Army, and my topic that I was given, I volunteered to take, was the readiness of what was the biggest contributing factor in the readiness of the Army Reserve. So I wrote a paper. Before I sent it to the chief, I said, I better call the car, tell him what I've written, because I didn't want him to get a phone call from the chief and saying, what is this that this rogue major general you got out there wrote this paper about the readiness of the reserve? And so I always said if I was going to be in a position, I wanted to change, and now I'm in that position, I want to change this mantra of this one weekend a month battle assembly philosophy that we've got. Not that we don't need to have it for those who can't participate, but we got to elevate our training and how we do things better. So more to hear on that, but if you read the CAR's guidance closely, because I've had about 2 discussions with him on it, it's pretty clear in there about how he's thinking of leveraging those authorities to increase more authorities to the commanders so they can get after the training and readiness of the force. We're ready to go. So, last thing I'll tell you, not that I'm touting anything, but the Sustainment Magazine, anybody read the Sustainment Magazine that comes out? Okay. Well, check out the article that comes out in March and April. So I was the author of that, about the Joint Logistics Enterprise. I was surprised that there had never been a paper written about that on the Joint Staff. I got volunteered again to write that. And so anyway, that'll be published here before long. So it's going to be a great article. General Peggy, the G3, G4, the Army's put together a whole series of articles in there about sustainment and readiness of the force. And it's really going to talk about the fight going into Korea. So keep that magazine in mind as you're getting those publications. So that's about all I had to really say this morning. I wanted to open up for any questions or any thoughts that someone had that they wanted to ask me. And please feel free to do such. It's anybody on the network out there might have something too. I'm not sure. I'll pause. Thought you said they weren't bashful. Well, if no one wants to ask me anything, that's fine. I hope I answered some of the questions that you might have. Like I said, I will be talking more with you later on once I get more information. I don't have that. My real purpose was to introduce myself today, let you know what I had on my mind right now. It does change over time, and it will, but just give you a little strategic direction there. Yes, sir.
I
Okay.
I know the land CG's focus was logistics and DOL. What's your focus for the 81st? What's your focus?
Well, so I've been a lifetime, what I didn't tell you, what I did at Hallmark was I rose to be in the ranks of my last position there, last 10 or 12 years, was the engineering manager for the production facility there. My focus was always on the logistics of running a million square foot manufacturing plant. We produced over $600 million worth of materials out of there in that one facility per year. So I got a good sense about the logistics and I was also in charge of the facility, all the engineering, the structure, and all that stuff. So DOL, DPW are two priorities for me. They are, along with a lot of other things. But clearly, if you don't have the structures in place, you don't have the plan out there, the capital plan, if you want to call it, to get the money allocated to see where the future's going on what you need to repair, you're always you're fighting behind the 8 ball, and that's a hard thing, because the first thing everybody wants to cut is the maintenance of their buildings, services, that type of thing. It's a unappreciated field of endeavor, I will tell you. I can't tell you it's my number one priority, because everything's number one, right, in this world of no resources. But no, I probably place that along with other things, but readiness and that's part of readiness, to be able to have the facilities so our people can train and learn, especially in this new 5-tiered domain we're at. So I don't know what his emphasis was on that, why that was any different than other, but I'm not sure I answered your question, but clearly it is a priority along with other things. It's just got to be balanced along with the needs of what we have available. And hopefully we'll get more funding as time goes on to improve the facilities and maintain them and get out in front of that piece of that a little bit. So, that's a good question, though. I've only got through one day of briefs so far. They beat me up pretty hard yesterday. Started with the DPW, so I guess I had them at the top. I do plan to get out and see all those AMSA shops out there, visit the command, visit a lot of our headquarters. I've talked to our deputy yesterday a little bit about maybe some thoughts I had on changing the way we do annual training, what we do, those type of things. I'm not saying we're changing anything today. I think the worst thing you do when you come into an organization is say you're going to change everything. I only believe in change for the right reasons. So change is important, but it's got to be for the right reasons, and it's got to be what's good for the organization, not me personally. It's about what we got to do to help our Army and our Army Reserve get ready to go. So, okay. Anybody else? Look, we have, I guess, Battle Assembly coming up the weekend of the 9th, 10th, and 11th of February. So look forward to seeing you a lot at that time. I'll be here a busy week, always are, during those quarterly battle assemblies. We'll do Assumption of Command at that time. We may have some very distinguished visitors that are coming. I've sent out a lot of invites. I hope they do come. If not, we'll still have a great day, one way or the other. So all right. Well, listen, y'all carry on with your mission. I will get back with you, close the loop when I do get some different guidance and more information to pass on to you. Again, I thank you for what you do. I ask you to continue to do it, and I ask you to share our burden, your share of the task going forward. Thank you. Cool.